as you can tell from just the first 2 seconds, this epilogue will be pretty different than the others I've done. Typically I recap the generation, but this generation would take literal hours to recap. I think the mystery part is wrapped up sufficiently by the 2-hour movie, you know? So that being said, I'd like to talk a little bit about my process in the creation in this absolute whirlwind of a story, if you'd allow me, because I've just been scheming for 9 months and it's finally over. Sasha was born, I think, is when I came up with the idea. I can remember what made me create Ashlyn as the killer. I had read the novel One of Us is Lying. I didn't love the book, it was fine, but I didn't care for it that much. But I remember rooting for Bronwyn being the killer. I decided to make a similar Booksmart excelling character to be the killer because I was like, for some reason, really wanted her to be. When I made Ashlyn, I didn't know yet what her motive would be. Originally, the first episode was truly just meant to be an introduction to Sasha and Leah and their ability to solve things, and it wasn't going to have much weight in the overall story. I was thinking of the mystery at the summer retreat to be completely different. Mr. M's creepy behavior. I was thinking something around bribery of school administration or something, while looking back, it's a boring-ass idea. The idea I ended up going up with, I had brainstormed with my sister actually, but I left out the part where the first episode is actually really important to the storyline when talking to her. I was hoping it would throw her off that I used the idea we brainstormed together because the first episode's topic was such a last-minute decision. So why would it be such a vital one to the story? Gotta say, I was really terrified that I would not be able to trick y'all. I was so worried everybody would be like, well, duh. But I was fully expecting to be really bad at this and just botch it. Everybody knew immediately who it was. Like, I was so nervous, but I actually think I did a pretty good job. But I'm gonna be going over, like, behind the scenes for each episode because there was a lot going on behind the scenes. And there's a lot of things that is, like, crazy foreshadowing. There's a lot of contradicting statements regarding the murder that comes up later that would, like, if somebody remembered it, them who the killer was. So I tried really hard to make it possible for people to find out who it was, but not easy. At the time of recording this, only one person knew who it was, which was my sister. But that's because she talked to me all the time in real life, and she said that my mannerisms made it obvious that it was her. And she also had no idea about anything else. She didn't know what the motive would be, she just had a feeling it was Ashlyn. And I think that's because she also read the book and she also wanted Bronwyn to be the killer, so that's there. But in episode 1, I hinted so heavily to the reference of Mr. M and Ashlyn. I literally said that he has a sister who couldn't come to the retreat. And in-game, they're like kind of identical. They're literally just gender bends of each other. I really expected to get found out because of that. I thought I made it way too obvious. But the thing is, when everybody's watching it, they weren't expecting that later they'd have to collect clues and figure out a murder mystery. So at least at the time of recording, not a single person had figured everything out completely, though I tried to make it possible to do so. It just means I did an okay job, which I'm proud of. I had never written a mystery before, and I had never seen anything remotely like this in the Sims community or YouTube in general. So this was extremely nerve-wracking and very hard to execute. As I said, in episode 1, Natasha mentioned she was unhappy to be at the retreat because her best friend couldn't come, who was mentioned to be Mr. M's sister. I said that, which I didn't even remember saying that, but that's crazy. Later in episode 9, Mr. M claimed that he grew up an only child. If someone was to catch on to this, they might have been able to tell something weird was going on regarding Mr. M's family, and they might have, like, oh wait, he actually kind of looks like Ashlyn, or, you know, he said he had a sister, so it would narrow it down to the woman. So, like, that was, like, the biggest, almost, piece of evidence. There were also a couple of instances in episode 1 where Mr. M's full name was on screen. I tried to hide it because people just called him Mr. M, and I was trying to unsuspiciously keep his full name from people. And I think it worked because I think people didn't really think much of it, they just thought Mr. M was his name, like, it doesn't really matter. Nobody ever said anything about that, about his name at all. But yeah, there were a couple of instances where his full name was flashed on screen, which is Antonio Moore, which was an accident. Also, at that point, nobody was looking for a murderer, and nobody remembered what Ashlyn's last name is from the cast video, which is completely reasonable. And in episode 2, Derek autonomously love serenaded Rachel, which I would assume was his attempt to make her like him, so that he could convince her to get rid of the baby, because he noticed she was having symptoms. In episode 3, Leah sprained her ankle while playing soccer with Isaac. No foul play was involved, but that was something that was taken into consideration for the plan to kill Leah. That was also not something I did. That was something the game did, and I was like, oh my gosh, that works actually. The coyotes were a plot device used to isolate the crew and ensure that it must have been one of the roommates, because if everybody was allowed on campus all the time, there would be a possibility that somebody other than the people on that cliff killed Leah. And I wanted to make sure that there was a focus on just the main characters, you know? They were also there to falsely focus, I guess as a red herring, falsely focus worry or attention to the potential conflict of coyotes when coyotes were not the problem. Rachel was also brought up many times to have pee a lot, which was something I noticed in game, but it worked well with the storyline. Again, like, my game helped me out a lot. In addition, episode 3 was meant to develop the characters before disaster. The characters are very important, and I tried to keep them all in great importance during the party on the cliffs, but Rachel's personality was actually the one I spent the most time trying to flesh out in this scene, because her and Derek's relationship and their interactions would become crucial to pay attention to in the end. The scene also developed the characters as somewhat happy, casual, fun college kids. Multiple times throughout the series, Ashlyn's enjoyment of photography was mentioned. Photography was going to end up being a bigger deal in the end reveal, but it was decided against. However, it suggested in the first episode that Mr. M had also been taking photos of the creepy sword, but still, like, taking photos. Lots of photos. And when he was stalking the girls at the summer camp. So back to episode 3. At the campfire, when Leah brought up the senior retreat, Ashlyn suggested that maybe the topic was a bit too serious for the light occasion. She did so because she didn't like hearing her brother be slandered and wanted to keep her anger down as best as she could. During the time where Leah told the story, Mr. M was constantly slandered, rightfully so, by the rest of the crew, which infuriated Ashlyn to the level where she was sure she wanted to enact the plan tonight. When Derek said he was bored, Ashlyn prompted him to come up with something else to talk about, which was seen by the crew as a snark towards him, when in reality it was her, like, begging for a subject change. There were also many, and I mean so many times during the cast video in episodes 1, 2, and 3 where I foreshadows Leah's death by talking about cliff diving, the height of the cliff, and Leah wanting to go cliff diving. Which is ironic because at the end of the episode she crossed that off her bucket list. The cliffs, Leah also mentioned that she had written love poems before. She lied and said they were just for practice, but she was actually just referring to the ones that she had written for Winona, as well as the novel that she wrote based on Winona and herself that led to Sasha's discovery of their relationship. And then Derek sending Leah to get the beers was suggested by Ashlyn. Ashlyn told him jokingly, you know, she owes you, right? Now, she actually expected for Leah to go down to the truck all alone, and she wanted to kill her the same way that she ended up killing Malin. Malin's death was so quick, I guess you could say, because the equipment was already there. Ashlyn set up the equipment for Leah. She was hoping for a way that she could lure Leah down there, but Leah staying on the cliffs actually worked in her favor because the murder weapon was handed to her on a silver platter, the cliffs. And here's just like some tidbits about the murder trio of murderers, Ashlyn, Derek, and Nicholas, because it wasn't a very functional trio, let's just say that. Ashlyn planned to kill Derek if he didn't keep her secrets. However, Derek is not a victim. He didn't want to tell them anyway and found pleasure in the deaths. So Nicholas was bribed to change the autopsy results. The original autopsy results showed that she did not die in impact, which meant the bruises that were formed were not from being pushed. There was no actual real evidence that somebody killed her, but Ashlyn wanted there to be so that she could frame Sasha. So she bribed Nicholas into making it so the police were investigating it, so that she could lead them to Sasha being the killer. So essentially, she dug her own grave by bribing them into looking into murder. Ashlyn had wanted to kill and frame them before the party, but she wasn't sure yet when. When Leah sprained her ankle, she formed the plan. Before, she had already formed the pact with Nicholas. Starting episode 4, Ashlyn played the cards of somebody who was genuine. She even advocated for things that she knew would hurt her chances because she didn't need to play the game herself. She already had Nicholas doing it for her. She played the role of a caring friend. The real reason behind that is she had faith that no matter what, the evidence would say Sasha was the killer. So there was no reason for Ashlyn to act suspicious, because she knows that if she tried to blame it on somebody, if she did anything in alignment with her real intentions, she would become suspicious. So because things were being done behind the scenes, she didn't have to act. She didn't have to push for anything. She didn't have to push anything that would make her suspicious. So she played the role of a caring friend. In episode 5, Sasha mentioned that she doesn't fully understand the reasoning for the ruling in the case as a homicide. The bruising, the reasoning was weak that they gave because Nicholas pulled the evidence out of her ass and it wasn't real. but it was what the police had to go off of, and the police weren't good to begin with. Even the ones that had good intentions or didn't, even the ones trying to find the murderer out, they weren't very good at it, so they didn't really question why it was a little strange, the reasoning for ruling it as a homicide. In episode 6, it was confirmed that Sasha's suspicions of Winona was a mutual feeling. At the end of the episode, it was shown that Mr. M was bailed out of prison. This was by his family, the same family that used their money to pay off Nicholas. Throughout the series, I have dropped some hints regarding Ashlyn's family fortune, although Ashlyn, Rachel, and Derek, and technically Malin, all had good amounts of money from their parents. Malin wasn't very close to her parents, and Rachel ended up getting disowned by her parents because of Isadora. So neither of them ended up with much money, and it didn't really matter in Malin's case anyway. In episode 7, Ashlyn suggested going to the salon with her roommates. It was incredibly unsuspicious and really had, I tried to make it seem like it had absolutely nothing to do with the story, because, as everybody knows, around episode 6 or 7 is time for a makeover on my channel. That's the way it's been. So Sasha, oh my gosh, I need to stop calling her Sasha. Sasha got her hair chopped off, and Ashlyn took a couple strands of the hair to bring to Nicholas so they could plant the evidence at the beginning of the episode, and Sasha and Ashlyn went to check in with the police. And Nicholas had planted that DNA on the cliffs, so when Winona was out there and found evidence and brought it in, it was authentic, I say in air quotes, evidence against Sasha, and Winona was the one who found it. So there was no ties to Nicholas or Ashlyn, you know? If anybody had suspicion on the authenticity of it, it would be on Winona. There was no suspicion because police are terrible at their jobs. But when they went back to look for the phones in episode 7, while they found Leah's, they didn't find anybody else's phone because Derek had found them and destroyed them per Nicholas's orders. Ashlyn did end up trying to convince Felix and Sasha to turn the phone in for fingerprints to the police, because she knew it would earn her brownie points with the two of them, and she knew that Nicholas would have her back if the phone had Ashlyn's fingerprints on it. In episode 8, which was Ashlyn's interrogation, Ashlyn lied a lot. Surprise. I'm sure that's surprising. She found it easy to do so. Everything she said, all the points she brought up, all of her suspicions were just red herrings. I wrote her as a very authentic person who wanted to get this done because she didn't have any reason to act otherwise. Things were already being taken care of. So I think by episode 9 it was possible to completely deduce what was going on. And I say this because Mr. M completely contradicts himself on a seemingly small thing. As I said, first episode, I mentioned Natasha has a best friend who wanted to be here, who's Mr. M's sister. Episode 9, it was kind of strange because Mr. M kind of randomly just popped the fact that he doesn't have any siblings into the conversation, which was just, it could make someone less suspicious of Ashlyn because if they suspected they were siblings, they'd be like, oh, he doesn't have siblings. Or it would make them more suspicious of her because they might remember in episode 1 when he said he had a sister. I also figured if people saw Mr. M close enough again, in episode 9, they'd notice, hey, he looks so much like Ashlyn. In episode 10, Felix mentioned how they all went to school together. This is true, but Ashlyn didn't really know any of them. She wasn't very social, and she spent more time with people from Sasha's school than her own. In episode 9, I scrapped basically the entire episode idea. The original episode idea had to do with Malin during her time at high school with Derek. It was going to be a flashback. But I didn't have a good time or a good place to put it, and felt pretty irrelevant to the murder mystery. And that was going to be the entire plotline of episode 9. But instead, I pulled the entire Mr. M investigation out of my butt. It was very spontaneous, didn't know what I was doing. But it turned out being very, helpful to the story. But hopefully it wasn't obvious that I completely just pulled it out of nowhere. It was not the original plan at all. But anyway, in the original episode, it was going to reveal how Eric was a relentless bully of Malin. Malin and Isaac were also friends, but they didn't really stay in touch over the summer because they thought Isaac wouldn't be going to Foxbury. So when they got to Foxbury and got in their own friend groups, things were nice but a little awkward between them. And also, I think I mentioned at some point that Malin had punched somebody like she punched Mr. M before, and it was Derek. And his nose is permanently a little bit crooked because of it. I don't know how much of that I mentioned before, but yeah. So yeah, I think it's so cool how thought out this was. I know I'm the one who made it, but I'm honestly shocked how much everything tied together in the end. So many lines of dialogue, actions, and secret were so intentional, and I'm proud of it. I really don't think I'd go back and change anything. The series might have been my life's work. And I'm totally just gonna boast about this till the end of time, because the fact I made every single piece of this series by myself, and it turned out so wonderfully. I don't care if I'm being egotistical, this is a cinematic masterpiece. I think I deserve to say that. But anyway, I don't know what compelled me to take on a project this large and unknown. When I started, I had no idea that I would put my entire soul into this series. I didn't know I'd make a movie, I didn't know much at all. I knew that I'd never seen anything like this anywhere before, and I've never seen somebody make a machinima over 20 minutes. The undertaking of a lifetime, and I was so stupid for doing it, but I'm so glad I did. So much has changed since I started this series, both on my channel and in my real life. I just wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart for staying with me and enjoying this journey with me. While Isadora's generation isn't gonna have a movie or an intricate murder mystery plot, I hope you'll join me for what's to come. I have high hopes that it will be just as fun. That's it, folks! That's Sasha Willatine Rosewood's suspenseful, heartfelt story. Sasha's story was one about loss, betrayal, university, and finding peace and justice for those whom we love who were wronged. And it's coming to a close. I hope you guys enjoyed Sasha's journey. Over the last 9 months, I've become incredibly attached to these Sims. I hope you're ready to continue this legacy with me, because this is not the full Rosewood story. Isadora's story started long ago and has a long way to go. Sasha's story may be over, but Isadora's is just getting good. Though Sasha was my heir for the longest time on my channel, and Sapphire Cliffs was a cinematic feat I will never quite get over, this legacy still has a long way to go. There's so many stories left to explore, and next is Isadora's time to shine. And now, the final scene. It's only proper to end Sasha's story with Sasha herself. Benches and roads.